I gotta get my glasses.
Okay, go ahead.
So today we are going to discuss politics, and I have posted the list of questions in chat. But actually, I have collected some questions to somehow structure the topics we are going to discuss. But actually, I think they are very interconnected, and it's all one topic. But okay, let's try to start.
Because everything is a neural network, that's why everything is interconnected. Yes.
Yeah, yes, but I mean, in this in this politics topic, just if you don't mind, I can I would like to throw some thoughts about those things just for a start. I think that you have proposed recently some approach to solve the conflicts within with democracy, and you have posted it in the group. And I think that it is there are some classes of problems when people have some different preference, different opinions, and we need some approach to solve the problems. But I'm not sure that what we have now on the global level between the states and all these terrible conflicts, that it is of that kind of things. I think that there are some ideologies that are being sold to people by some people that having power and resources to make some indoctrinations well, just to make people more manageable in their own in favor of their own interests. And I think that most of the things that are happening, they are just for money. It's beneficial for someone's. And so also, how can we talk about democracy when there are people who have power and resources and to influence heavily the opinions? That's another question. And then there is a I think some initial conflict between I think when we're talking about democracy, we are talking about liberal democracy. But there is a conflict initially between the democracy and freedom. That's another contradiction, and it is assumed to be solved within liberal democracy, but I'm not sure I am convinced that it is really solved. Then what else?
Okay, Katya, let's concentrate on one question at a time, because
yeah, I'm just trying to say that. Okay. So, and there is another question about oligarchies. It is also a part of this. I'm not really sure that we have some real democracies at the moment. Well, yeah. I don't know, maybe it's kind of extreme opinions that I'm saying, but that's just, well, to provoke some
discussion.
Yeah,
but
so let's start
you missed one. You missed one, though. Besides democracy, there's also a republic, which is different than a democracy. Democracy is, you know, like 51% and everything's good, and a republic is represented by a whole series of leaders in the country, and that's what we have in the United States. We have a republic, not a democracy. A lot of people get
we have both, right?
Yeah,
we have both. We have both. combination
I
of
guess
both.
you could say that, yeah.
Right.
Okay,
So there are
okay,
certain places that you elect according to the from state. Doesn't matter how large your population is, and certain places elect according to the population. So it's more great. But okay, Katya, finish, because I like
yes,
have like
yes,
I
I
have like
have
100 thoughts at the same time, and I have to
yeah,
collapse
yeah,
to one.
yeah. And another thing I would like to make a disclaimer let's try to stick to the world as neural network theory when we are trying to give some answers to this to all of that. Otherwise, we will. I'm afraid there is a high risk to falling in a very general discussion. So now let's start with the first question. What would be the most effective political system, and what are the problems of democracy, and how can they be solved? So, Vitaly, please.
Okay, Katya, it's like you've mentioned 10 questions, and then you said, okay, now I'm going to give you the 11th question, and then I'm not sure, should I start with the 11th one or with the first one you mentioned? So, but I think I'll start with your last remark, that if we are trying to say something new about political system, we should base it on the neural network theory, because that's kind of what we think we understood better, and ask the question, what is this theory can tell us of what the right way to form political systems, right? So now, when you start working with a neural network, with a learning system, the first thing you have to answer, what is your loss function? What is it that you're trying to optimize? Now, as a person, you can ask this question for yourself, as a family, as a local community, as a state, country, humanity, and all of those scales. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? What is your now? The answer can be, for example, wealth, right? So we're just trying to make it may be one of the objective functions, and something that you're trying, whatever you do, you're trying to make the total wealth to be the largest possible. Now, is it a good idea? Maybe at some point, but then it may lead to the problem of oligarchy, where rich become richer, poor become poorer. Now, overall, the combined wealth grows, right? But it doesn't mean that individual part of the system start to but okay, let's take as a Gedanken experiment. Let's say we want to make people in certain country wealthy. We want to also the distribution of wealth to be more or less fair, right? So we don't want have extra riches for the price of making people extra poor. So then, what would be the right political system there? What would be the right structure, the right architecture? So now, first we figure out what by the way, I don't think wealth is a good measure, and it should be, in my opinion, it should be the ideas. If the society generates new ideas, being creative, whether scientific ideas, artistic ideas, it has creativity, then it's a good functional society, and wealth will come, and all other benefits will come. So I don't think it's the right approach, but okay, we can play with that. But that's not the only question you ask. So given that you have identified your loss function, what is the like structure? What is like architecture? We can compare, for example, dictatorship. Let's say there is one person who makes all the decision, and then everybody else is kind of has little power. In terms of neural network, it would be a very shallow network. There is no depth to it. There's like one person rules everything. Or you can create a hierarchy of structures, right? So maybe there is one main person, then there is some number of people under him, and then there's a tree-like structure. Now, is it an efficient one? Perhaps not. There are no closed loops. There's still the problem of information flowing backwards. So the person on top may not really know what is the right thing to do for the person on the bottom. And so this type of a tree-like structure is okay. It's like that's what most of the democratic countries have, right? But can you do it better? Can you make sure that the people at any level can easily transition between levels and communicate back with each other? Can you change this structure and make connections be easily established, right? So this is one idea behind neural network. It only performs well if you can learn the connections. If the connections can be, if you don't need connections, you destroy them. And if you do need, you make the connection. So if it is possible, then it is dynamical system. It has this plasticity, and it will adapt. It will adapt to whatever changes that come from the environment. Now, what is the environment for a political system? For, let's say, country. It can be neighboring countries. So that's an environment, right? So whatever neighbors do, you have to react. You have to respond to them appropriately. And if you have this neural plasticity, you will be able to better react and reconstruct your architecture. But there are other things. There can be, environmental changes, right? So environment changes, you have to create new rules, you have to adapt your system to the new realities, and you have to do it fast. And so if you have this neural plasticity, if your system is able to adapt, then you'll be good at it. Then there can be, biological boundary. All of a sudden, we encountered COVID pandemic, right? We were completely not ready for that, right? And we were not adapting very well. Okay, but not as well as we could have, because the structure was not fluid enough to learn how to respond to all those systems. So I think then the answer, like high-level answer, later we can go to details, but high-level answer, we have to first identify what is the loss function, and then allow to as much plasticity to the architecture. Now, and then this architecture will itself adjust to whatever is the right structure is, and then if you do that, then presumably we'll not go to the dictatorship. Now, democracy will probably be part of it, but maybe it's not the most ideal system. And that comes back to the things, Katya, that you said before. Like you end up having, in any system, you end up having groups with very extreme views. It can be within a country, like, Republicans versus Democrats. Or it can be between neighboring countries, like Israel, Palestine. It can be...
Vitaly, can I interrupt you?
Sure, go ahead.
You put many theses together, and I'm not sure it's possible to untangle them. First is about the loss function. Yes. I am really wondering, you are saying that we have to construct this loss function. Our best hope is to discover the loss function for the levels which are above individual. Right. I'm not sure it's possible to construct it in a sense, to design it, to change it. We can discover the loss function. We can understand that, okay, societies develop in such and such way that probably loss function is minimization of suffering, maximization of age, I don't know, maximization of wealth, whatever. We can discover it, and we can argue whether we discover it the right formulation or whether there are some additional things, additional members to this equation. But certainly, I don't believe it's possible to design it or even change it consciously from our own level, from the level of individuals, however they are smart. So let's understand what's going on with the loss function.
Right. So okay, I'm happy that to return to loss function. I think it's maybe the most important question of all, but others will follow. I am saying that you have to construct it now. You can discover it, you can observe it, what other people had tried, what different societies had tried, what different countries had tried, and you can try to understand, okay, this happened because that was the loss function, okay? And that happened because that was the loss function. You can do observational tests on that, but I think you can do more than that. You can actually try to argue for what loss function would benefit on a given time scale. So, for example, let me give an example. You're a politician, you make the decision whether to invest in education or to cut taxes, right? It's a politician, you have access to this, and then you're president, right? You are constructing the loss function. You are deciding what you will value more. And then you can do it by doing some kind of calculations, trying to understand which will lead to what to the what benefits each decision will lead. Or you can look at the example from the history and say, okay, that was tried there and that's kind of worked, or it was tried there, it kind of worked. This is learning by experimenting, collecting the data. But you can also
so you are saying that essentially it's like a natural selection. People work like a mutation. Different people can come with all the possible spectrum of loss functions, but then the ideas will be competing, and some will win, and but some society, even if some idea won, but some society in which it won will die out because it was not a good idea, and so it's kind of a natural selection process. Probably not very random.
A natural selection without actually doing any smart work, right? You try everything, and whoever.
But you do. You do not try everything. It's not a random process by which different ideas come to life. It's the same smart mutations from all philosophers.
Descent, right?
You cannot say that they are stochastic, but certainly.
It's a stochastic gradient descent, meaning you try random directions, but you also measure how good given change to your structure.
I cannot agree that you are trying stochastic things. People do some initial thought experiments before they start implementing something. To some degree, it's a smart mutation.
Right. So,
but they cannot be fully tested. They cannot be fully tested. You cannot predict the final result of competition for this particular society which accepted this particular set of ideas. But it's natural selection, but the process of mutation is smart. It is not stochastic. It's smart mutation.
I think the word stochastic I use in the sense of stochastic gradient descent, which means you choose a stochastic directions, random directions in which you try, but then you actually move to minimize your loss in those directions. And the reason why you have to use like stochastic direction, because you cannot model everything. There's too many parameters to model. So you only have to concentrate on few, and in those few directions, you kind of move in a certain direction. So stochastic doesn't mean random, but it means that you're only concentrating on certain aspect. You cannot like at the same time model and concentrate on everything. But I think we can do more than that. So this is like local motion, like based on your past experience. But I think you can do actually modeling of how this whole system evolves, and then figure out what is the right architecture, test it then at the small society level, like the local community, and then scale it up to the level of the country. This can be potentially done, and then it would not be really a continuous stochastic motion in the configuration space of all political system, but will be a sudden jump, right? You're in one political system, and then you make a phase transition to go a different political system, which is much better according to whatever calculations you have done and experiments you have performed. So I think this is also possible, but that involves redefining your loss function, not rethinking your loss function. What is that you want your society to optimize? Okay, so yeah, I mean, we should probably finish with the loss function before we go to the
other loss function or architecture. So you are assuming that we, from our level of individual beings, can influence the working of the network at the next level.
That's right.
And change it by design.
And that's how actually political systems, like when America was founded, they designed it. It was a design. They didn't know it will work or will not work. They used all of the experience of the previous times people tried to build democracy or what's not, and then say, okay, well, let's do this. Let's start with the constitution.
But the problem is that it still had not won globally. So this experiment is had not finished, and many ideas and all the level from Karl Marx to Muammar Gaddafi, the ideas come up, and there are no definite winner, in this game. And some oldest ideas, like I don't know which is probably the oldest continuously existing idea. Probably it's U.S. democracy, or I don't know.
Well, democracy seems to be winning against dictatorship and totalitarian regime. So that seems to be the case by all measures, by measure of the wealth, by measure of the ideas, by all measures.
It doesn't win by measure of the number of people living under these.
It doesn't. That.
And that's and wealth. Okay, it definitely is winning by wealth measurement. It is probably winning by average age of population. People live longer. So that's two measures which I like personally. I like these measures, but the number
also ideas. If you count the Nobel Prizes or the new products that being developed, it is the Silicon Valley, it is the U.S., it is the American universities where most of that was developed. Now, how that's done, but that's the fact. That is a fact.
It's real simple. It's individual freedom. But
no. I know, but I'm saying
that's why it happens.
Really yeah, if
that's
we are
why it
comparing
happens.
it against other system, there seems to be a winner. I think there is a winner right now. Now,
yeah,
is
there
it
sure as hell
perfect?
is.
Is it perfect? No. And we are here in US have this problem that I was trying to get to, is that we have Democrats and Republicans that just hate each other, and they're like the country is splitting in two. Right, so even in the country like US, with all of the good and bad things there, the system is falling apart because of that, and there's something that needs to be done in that, and that was kind of conflict resolution that Katya mentioned that I wanted at some point to get into discussing, but maybe let's finish with the loss function. So
as I understand, Victor means some. Maybe I'm wrong, Victor, please correct. I think that Victor means something else by winning. You are talking that you're saying that it wins in terms of we see that it's for good, and it provides better results. But then why it is not winning in world scale? Why there are still
it wasn't designed for the world scale.
I think that winning should probably mean just the number of nodes which exist and are strongly connected in this particular subnetwork. And as we discussed, in the democratic subnetwork, number of nodes is not the greatest.
And why it is different from winning in a world scale? I mean, it's the same. If we
it's the same. Just the measurement is the number of nodes which are strongly connected in the boundaries of this particular system.
Yeah.
And then there are other subnetworks which are bigger, but they are governed by the different loss function.
And the problem with the other networks that may be bigger, they may have still smaller number of trainable parameters. So the good thing about American democracy, that democratic systems, is that their trainable parameters are there and they're being trained. You can easily move from one state to another. You can establish new connections. You can switch fields. You can
but in artificial neural network, once you learned something, you try to prune the network. You try to decrease the number of parameters to make computations easily without sacrificing quality of the calculation.
The numbers, yes, but then you can.
By itself, it is not any advantage of. So it's the simpler the better. It's just another.
So if you have very few connections that are not dynamical, that is a horrible system. So if it's pruned, it's called a constrained neural network, and then you cannot relearn it to something else. Now, if it's unconstrained, then you can, for example, like in 10 years ago, we were not thinking about COVID and stuff. Maybe some of the challenges that we have now were not there. But if you have a network that can easily adjust to new changes, then it will reestablish new connections, and it's more dynamical. That's that is really beneficial to the system. So the number of nodes is not important, but the number of trainable variables is important. In dictatorship, there are very few trainable parameters. There are very few things that you can change, and if people are in fact afraid of changing because that may be fatal for them. So okay, but anyways, we probably agree that there should be some measure to the loss function, and then you have to decide what is it should be. And then is it the number of nodes? Is it the number of trainable variables? Is it the number of is it the size of the population? Is it the number of ideas that population can generate? Or is it the wealth that it can generate, which is probably correlated with ideas? And I think the countries where ideas and education is more important for the loss function usually grow faster. And there
is famous paradox really about the benevolent dictator, and which says that basically that if the loss function is right, like it's economic well-being, and then a beneficial dictator like Pinochet is making achieving the results better than democracy. So it's indeed to separate things, loss function and general architecture, and it can be combined. And some loss functions can be trained faster and better trainable under the simple architecture, but some loss functions, if, for example, if you include flexibility in the loss function, then you're right. Shallow architecture cannot be flexible, and any changes will destroy the shallow system, and only the deep system can be effective if your loss function includes the reaction to sudden changes.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point.
Yes, yes. So indeed, it's very interesting that there are two things: architecture and loss function, and they are connected in some complex way.
Well, I'm going to throw in the third one. So loss function is great, architecture is great, but then it is also important for you. I started talking about this, connections, right? Being able to establish connections, change connections.
It's architecture, no? It's the same.
Architecture is what is it that you can change, and then being changed. So you can think about architecture is your initial conditions for the neural network. You set it up. You say, okay, I'm allowing this and that to change. Okay?
I don't like this. For there in this area at least. There are no fixed architecture in this sense.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what is the falling of any dictatorship? When suddenly you discover that there are connections on the lower levels. You see it as a hierarchy, but then suddenly this dictator can discover that there are connections at lower levels. Society is organizes itself. So there are latent connections. They are not probably very
but can you change them? They are there, but are they easily changeable? So you can have a loss function, you can have your architecture completely unconstrained, everything can be, but then no connections are being changed. They're like frozen. They are very slowly changing. So this friction of chain connection, inability to establish new connection or to erase. So that is the constraint to the learning dynamics that prevents to be an effective learner. And so, and I think that's kind of the question that I would want to move on.
I think that all political scientists will agree with you that there are stable situations in any society, whether dictatorship or democracy. There are stable situations when nothing changes, and there can be very long phases of stable existence. But then some perturbations come out, and at this point, some phase transition occurs.
Absolutely. But if you have your network fluid, then it quickly adapts to new changes. So you need to not only have an unconstrained network, you should allow the connection, but also you should be able to change all those weights for the connection.
During the stable phase, you cannot estimate whether where is this boundary where it will.
Yeah, it always fluctuates. It's like it's not completely stable, right? So it stays in some minimum. You can in fact define like a temperature of a society, and the dictatorship society will have very small temperature, but it will still fluctuate a little bit. Now, democratic will have large temperature. Democrats all throwing in new ideas. Let's try this. Let's try that. but then it also learns to quickly.
No, the democracy also can exist in a very stable situation when there are not many differences between fighting parties. So it's democracy.
I'm not saying democracy is not stable. I'm just saying that in a democratic systems, you have first freedom for the architecture, so it can change, and then ability for the connections to change. And so that's why I'm trying to get to this third point of connections, right? So because I think they're essential. Connections, being able to grow and establish connections is essential for the system and then the problem, for example, of boundaries between countries that put some countries or some society in isolation is that you break connections between two sides. Now you can even have that within one country. So I started talking about Democrats and Republicans, each living in their own information bubble, not communicating with each other. And then within one country, you can have two groups of people that are really living in different universes. They do not have the same information shared. They don't read the same news. And so establishing connection between them is really impossible. And so that's kind of a constraint that makes the system behaving poorly because of so in the old times, there would be boundaries formed by the splitting into the countries or into the regions. Now the problem is this information bubbles, where you may live in different places, but you really live in different universes, thinking about gaining different information from the outside. And that's the problem that I think should be solved independently, whether it's a democratic country that are not able to establish connections because information bubbles, or it's totalitarian countries where people cannot establish connections and exchange information because they're afraid. It doesn't matter. If you stop giving the ability for people to establish connections, then that's it. Then the learning dynamic stops. It becomes frozen. And I think that was the discussion that I kind of had, saying that, well, let's take one example of the Democrats versus Republicans. So they don't talk to each other. They have different opinions on very different subjects. They read different news. And then whatever proposal Democrats give is completely opposite to what Republicans want to do. And there is no common ground. Basically, you are, for each Republican, it's more beneficial to become more and more right, go to the right. And for each Democrat, it's more beneficial to go more and more left. Because on the left, you will have support of more Democrats and Republicans will still be against you. And then the same for Republicans, it's beneficial for you to go more and more right. And then this way you'll have a support of more Republicans and Democrats still not supporting you. And then you have this split of the country. They just keep moving to the extremes. Left, move to the left, right, move to the right. And that's the problem. And I think it's the problem that created by this information bubble. And I think it's the very same problem that about, Israel and Palestine. The same, you just have two groups of people have completely two different understanding of what's happening, like two different information bubbles, or Russia and Ukraine, right? So any two subsystem that there is like little information flow in between. And that I think was the biggest problem that is present. Yes.
I think that even it's not even Russian Ukrainians or Israeli Palestine, but it is inside Russia now.
Yeah,
the
information bubble.
Is extreme. Of course, there are some problems with totalitarian regime, and that you can.
That's separate.
But that's separate. But even when you can talk to someone and express your opinion, you don't want even start because you realize that that's hopeless and it's only pain and.
Okay.
So
that's why I'm saying there are three problems, right? So sorry, but because first is you have to understand what is it that you're trying to optimize, and we may disagree or agree, but more or less people say, okay, wealth, resources, people, ideas, whatever. Second, construct architecture. Well, maybe being least constrained is good, right? So then you really don't want dictatorship. But the third one, still, given all that, you want to be able to establish connection between people. Not only between people, between communities, right? So you have one.
Yes, I'm trying to ask how do you have some more concrete ideas on how it is possible in practice?
Yes.
Given the current situation,
So I'm saying that, and that's what the proposal is for this logarithmic democracy. So the reason why when I stay in one bubble, I don't want to talk to the other bubble, and I don't want to change my views, because if I slightly perturb it, I will have less support within my own bubble, and that other bubble will never gain my support anyways. So I'm within my bubble, try to optimize whatever message I'm trying to broadcast. I'm not even paying attention to other bubbles. I don't care about them, because I will never be able to adjust, attract them to my bubble. They live in a different universe. And so my optimization is not optimization of the entire system, but only for my bubble. And that's what each politician does within Democratic or Republican, bubble. Or in Russia, there are some nationalists, right? With extreme views. They will not even think about what other people outside of their views are considering, because it's not important for them. They are trying to optimize their position within this smaller bubble. And that's the problem. I think the biggest problem is to break this information bubble. Challenge is to break this information, to make it not beneficial to stay within the bubble, and make it more beneficial for you to actually come up with the solutions that will have multiple dimensions, right? Solutions that will include opinions of the other bubbles. I don't know if it is making sense, but
let's take
Palestine, Israel. Let's take Palestine, Israel. Because
no, let's take I don't know, me, for example. I don't want to talk to people who I think have some stupid, inhuman values, and
that's the problem, because not all of them within that bubble, which you decided to say that are horrible people, not all of them are equally horrible. Okay. You drew this boundary, say, well, they're all bad. But not all of them are equally bad. There are some of them I agree you should not talk to, but there is a spectrum, a continuous spectrum. And some of them, if you reason with them enough, may actually get some common views with you. Some, not completely. They're still in that bubble. Okay. But less you talk to them, the more isolated from your views they become. They get different. It's not that they're bad. They actually have different information.
No, it's not the question that I don't want to talk about them about anything, including the weather. Well, if I need to buy some potatoes, I go to the market and maybe talk about the weather as well.
No, we're talking about different. We're talking about communication channel where the relevant information being exchanged. No, let's not talk about going to the market. So you have bubbles.
But I don't see any examples of in the current situation of people going to some agreements, people from different, let's say, bubbles, coming to some agreements on that exactly.
And I'm saying the reason for that is linear democracy. So each one of them have different views, and they're saying, okay, maybe I should be maybe less extreme. Let me try to move in the less extreme direction. If they try to do this, according to their linear democracy, their opinion will be even less popular. Because your views, they will never share. You are too far away from them, but they will lose the support of people in their bubble. So any motion towards breaking the bubble is against the calculations or optima for the linear democracy. So, like, think about there's a distribution of people, right? Maybe we should take a concrete example. Let's take Republicans and Democrats. And let's take one issue. Let's abortion. Okay, one issue, abortion, right? So Republicans say no go, right? There should not be any abortions. It should be like against law. And Democrats would say, no, it's for women to decide. They should make the decision, right? And you may think that all Republicans, all of them, are completely against abortion, and all of the Democrats are actually for abortion, which is completely not true. There is a spectrum, and then there are people there are a lot of people in the center, right, who say, well, you have considered situation How did she get impregnated? And, what are the circumstances? But if you're only listening to people within your bubble, let's say you are Republican, then expressing a view that maybe it is okay sometime to have abortion will just decrease your popularity in that bubble. So you'll never do that. And you will remain extreme, and will be more and more extreme with time, because you are not optimizing for both parties, for both extremes. You are just optimizing for yourself. And that breaks the connection.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out, are we trying to attach this to something like a neural network? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, I'm trying to argue that right now there is a problem of establishing connection between higher levels of their societies, where we are not just talking about individuals, but groups of individuals. So there's a problem. We take groups of individuals, and according to the multi-level learning, they should also be establishing connections, which is any group. And if there's something that stops establishing connection, the learning dynamics at that level stops. So maybe we people are still okay. So we can still go to the market. We can still talk, Democrats with Republicans. But then if you start talking as a group, it's just saying, I am now representing Democrats. And you're saying, I'm representing Republicans. Then we cannot establish connection.
And then we don't talk. Yeah, I got
We don't talk. And a connection on that level cannot be established. And if the connection on that level cannot establish, learning is not taking place. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the problem of information bubble. I'm saying in the old times, this was because people from different, backgrounds wouldn't talk to each other because they spoke different languages. They lived across different, countries. There were borders. Sure. Now it's gone, but there are information bubbles. You open your Facebook account, you read one set of news. I open my Facebook account, I read different set of news. We really do not read the same thing. We live in the different universes, right? And then if we start discussing any ideas at the level of like parties, I represent Democrats, you represent Republican, we'll never agree because of the way this groups diverge, and there's no connections being established. Now,
well, in my Facebook, I have different kind of news, and what I think is just everyone is crazy.
Okay. Well, maybe Facebook algorithm haven't figured out yet that you actually belong to a different bubble. Maybe you tricked them by not, writing too much. I don't know, controversial. I don't know. So they don't really know to where attach you. But I think that's the problem. And okay, now I want to go to the Israel and Palestine, because that's where the problem is really present, right? So you have Israeli people who live there, and they get one set of views. They represent Western values. Their education is more important. No, there are also extreme people there. I'm not saying that they're all like that, but they have some set of ideas that they share. And then they have some way of how they see this crisis can be resolved, right? And then you have a Palestine and people living in their information bubble that is more of a dictatorship as compared to democracy, and they will never be able to talk to each other because they're really, if you are in Palestine and you say, well, let's maybe negotiate a peace treaty with Israel where they have this and we have that. So if you just express this view, they will throw rocks into you, and then you will be dismissed right away, right? That's what you think, all right? But however, there are still people there, and there is a spectrum of people. Some of them are not so extreme, and some of them who actually may be willing to have some kind of a deal and treaty with Israel, right? They are silent. Why are they silent? Because if they express their views, they will
get shot.
They
will express this views only to their bubble. The other side will not see it, right? So and that's why and the same in Israel. Let's say you go and express views. Look, I think we should just give up with this Israel idea and let's just go live in other countries. This is also extreme view, right? So this wouldn't be popular there. Or if you come to Israel, say, well, we should just destroy all Palestinians and capture everything. Also extreme view. So there are different views, but if you're only expressing and thinking about your own bubble, this is what I call linear democracy. So you're really not taking into account at all the position of the opposing party. But if you would be thinking, okay, I'm proposing a deal between Israel and Palestine, but I will be optimizing at the same time the number of people who will support my proposal here in Israel and there in Palestine.
Vitaly, sorry, but I think that this example that you are now taking is what is about what been trying to tell in the beginning. It's not about people of Israel and Palestine talking to each other. It's completely about states, politics. It's not about
and so is Democrats versus Republican, and so is Russia versus Ukraine, and so is every other conflict between groups. It is always there's somebody with the money, with the power, with the whole influence one side of views, and then the other side of views will be influenced by somebody else. It's always like that. But under this circumstance,
then why we are what kind of sense it makes to consider Israeli talking to Palestinian people
to come up with a solution? So if let's say I'm a Palestinian, I live in Palestine, right? And I'm thinking about optimizing.
If you are Palestinian now, you think about how to refuge from.
I refuged. Okay, so let's say I'm in Palestine 3 months ago. Okay, look, I'm not saying right now it's a different situation. There are too many factors rapidly changing, and I'm trying to come up with a resolution to the problem, right?
No, but so, it's always a problem. There are many good ideas really in the world. The problem of transition is always important. Okay, let's say that your set of logarithmic voting is beneficial for this kind of for some category of situations, probably not with very strict polarization, but in situations where it's possible to construct the spectrum of solutions, then it will be working better than linear democracy. But the problem is how you can really transfer to this new state, how to make the move to this new
so I think if you start with very extreme cases where just like two groups completely disagree with each other, and you are saying that think about proposals of the resolution, and then rate your proposals according to the logarithmic democracy, then they will look at it and say, okay, well, looks like everything I propose never gonna work. Okay, because it's a zero. It gives you like, it is just the loss function according to this proposal is very small, very large, sorry. And then you will yourself, by reasoning of what would be should be a better proposal, you will naturally move in to more centric direction. So this is the whole point. We want to break the bubble, information bubbles. We want to establish connections between communities, societies, and the only way for you to do this, if you start actually paying attention what the other part says. That's how you establish connections. Like the people, when you establish connections, you can only establish and start talking to them when you speak the same language, right? If I say I'm going to speak Russian, English, and you're going to speak Russian, and I don't speak Russian, you don't speak English, that will never find a communication. But if I start thinking about what is it that will benefit you as well when I give you information, then I will be making different actions. We'll be taking different actions. Then I'll start to learn Russian language and etc. So I think this is just an approach of how you should think about your proposals of conflict.
But I think that one major problem with your proposal is that at this stage, the method of voting itself probably is not very relevant. It's not essential for this idea. The people who question you are really questioning the possibility itself to create this spectrum of proposals. Voting comes second, but the possibility itself.
Concrete example. There is a referendum takes place in both Israel and Palestine, and each party is allowed to make 10 proposals. Okay, and there are 20 proposals, and each person goes and marks 0 or 1 on each of the 20 proposals. everybody goes from Israel and everybody goes from the Palestine. Okay, and then we just do not take the arithmetic average. We do this logarithmic average, and then we decide according to that which proposal wins. And if everybody knows these rules by which we're playing, both parties, all Palestinians and all Israelis, if they know the rules, they will never vote, for example, in Palestine for the proposal where Israel doesn't exist, because they will know that this proposal will just have zero weight in this logarithmic counting. Okay, and then in Palestine, in Israel, they will not vote for the proposals where the Palestine doesn't exist, because it will take 0 votes in the proposal. So, but by thinking about what can work, right, they will actually vote for something in the middle automatically. And then you cannot say, well, you didn't vote for it. Everybody voted for it. This is the decision of both countries, and it will probably be some kind of two-state solution. And the reason it was possible because everybody voted. It was an open voting, and it was like decision of the two countries to decide what to do, to two people. So I think it may work. Of course, for that you really need to explain to people what this logarithmic weighting is, right? So that's my
which may be the most difficult point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hey, convince to use them, right?
So say it again, Yaroslav.
And convince them to use it.
Well, I mean, so look, I mean, just let's say it's a referendum where we're not making any decision. We just want to understand what people are thinking about, right? It's not expensive to run it, and like everybody goes to ballots, everybody votes, and UN is running it, although this organization is not good and has its own problems, but still. I mean, that would be something where people will, during this referendum, people will think about what other people will vote for. And as soon as they start thinking about what other people vote for, they make a different decision. Now, if you don't care what other people are voting for, then you make a completely different decision. You just, you just concentrate on your own bubble. And the same will work with the Democrats and Republicans. So I'm sure they would reach an agreement on the gun control or abortions if they would start thinking about the other party, each of that. So I think that was kind of the idea.
That's right, but you need to convince people to think about different peoples from different bubbles and take them into account.
That's right.
That's
The
main
this is
point,
one non-trivial
problem.
thing, right? But that's also comes with this neural network idea that you cannot be optimizing just yourself. You cannot be optimizing. You have to be optimizing different levels, right? So it's multi-level learning. So there is one decision you make based on what's good for your family. There is another decision that you make based on what's good for your country. The third decision you make what is good for the humanity, right? And so if you start realizing that you have to be making decisions by thinking about all this hierarchy of scales, then you will automatically understand that establishing connections between Israel and Palestine, or Republicans and Democrats, is beneficial for them. Yes.
Okay, so this is totally off your subject of today. But I've got to ask you, how did the neural network form post Big Bang? I mean, when do we have any idea how it formed? And do we have?
Sorry, let's stick to the topic.
Not today.
Yeah.
Can I just call you afterwards?
Yeah, we can talk about this.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I think one thing we didn't cover at all, which has to be covered when we discuss politics, is corruption, and nobody asked anything about that. So
because we broke all the schedule. That's why we are.
Oh, I see. Oh, we already passed the 1 hour. Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know if you want it to be 1 hour, then probably we are out of time.
No, I think it should be 1 hour, and then we can have another discussion of politics and corruption and conflict resolution some other time. Yeah.
Then we don't.
But politics is also it's always a controversial subject, and I think we should definitely have more than one discussion on that.
Yeah, but well, we don't start any other question, but let me just make another try to ask about this overcoming the polarization. We are not talking about voting and some big amount of people, and just if I take it right, you are saying that in personal communication.
No. I think when you are discussing, sorry, it's not a personal. When you are discussing, when you personally discuss something with a person in the other bubble, you're not representing yourself personally. You're representing your information bubble. Okay, so it can be your personal discussion with the person in the other bubble, and you may disagree with this, but this is not establishing personal connection. You can very well have a good personal connection with the person if you talk about sports or, I don't know, books or something else. But once you start talking about something that is known to be an agreed view in your bubble, with the other person who is expressing their agreed view, you are no longer representing yourself. You're representing.
Yes, I mean, in this situation, even having some kind of personal connection, is it possible to overcome? From practice, I don't see how it is
with the linear democracy mindset. It's impossible, because you are one person who trying to convince that other person to think otherwise. And that person knows if he switches his mind, he will be in minority in his bubble. And he doesn't want to be in minority, right? Because you are trying to take a person who lives comfortably within his bubble, thinks that everybody should think this way, and you're just stupid. And all of a sudden he's, okay, I'll change my mind. Then he'll become a minority. People don't like to be minorities.
Or the same is applicable to me then. So if I'm representing,
absolutely. So it's only when you start to think about bubbles, right, and like really optimizing. If each one of us stops thinking linearly, start thinking logarithmically, I think that your decision will be different. You will say, okay, I will have to think, what is it? Is there something reasonable in that bubble? Maybe not completely unreasonable. Maybe there is something that can be justified to me, and then then he will think the same way with you, and then you will finally figure out that there are some things that you just cannot give up on. Like Israel will never give up on getting rid of the country, right? But maybe other things it could, and the same Palestine. And so when you start like kind of understanding that, see within one bubble there are many issues. It's not just one issue that divides the bubble. Like I said, Republican Democrats, there is issue of abortion, gun control, and every education, and it's a bunch of things. And so it's right now it seems like everybody in this bubble thinks one way, and the other bubble the other way. But
well, I think if we take current Russian situation, it's just much more simpler. There is one question: if the invasion to Ukraine was somehow justified, and there is. People are divided by the.
Yeah, but that's a very broad question. So maybe you can like subdivide it to the things that you can discuss. I don't know. What does it mean to? When is it justified? Let's say to go invade in somebody else's house. Is it never justified? Or maybe if I hear the screams and shouts of killing in the nearby house, it's okay to go there. Right, so you can start discussing that, and then but again, unless you start putting yourself in the shoes of the other people, you will never. Well, I mean, it's a general statement, but I think that this is kind of the whole logic behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to. So if we are saying that everyone is in a bubble, and myself I should consider also being in a bubble. So I should somehow take. View that
find something good
maybe
in that
it
bubble.
Was justified, but I at this point I face some problem.
Right. So maybe you're not willing to give up on that it was justified, but you're willing to give up on something else. Okay, it was okay. I really this topic I didn't want to discuss. So invasion. of Russia, but I mean, with Republicans and Democrats, I can give better examples of when their views are not so sharply divided. And then also, there are some people who have extreme views, but most of people don't have extreme views. Most of the people do not think that there was no go and no other way to resolve the issue, even if there was an issue. And those are the people that can be used to break the bubble. But I think, it's mostly the problem that we're having now. It's a Facebook algorithm problem. Believe it or not, I think it's also a social media problem, because I don't see any other way why would people have different information.
I think it's a Putin problem.
No. I mean, a general problem of creating information bubbles. He also lives in information bubble. No, but you have to understand, Meryl, Putin lives in an information bubble where everything that he does is perfectly correct.
Oh yeah. Oh,
see, that's the problem. So he has his own information bubble, and maybe there is very few people live there. Okay, but he's there, and actually, according if you think about what this information might have been, you may see logic in what he does, according to his information, right?
Yeah, no, I get it, but we all know he needs to go.
Exactly, right. But the point is, we're not talking about those tiny information bubbles where like isolated people. I'm talking about huge bubbles. Republicans, Democrats, Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, Russia. Those are the huge information bubbles, and this can be easily broken if people just start, thinking logarithmically. I think.
Maybe I have an objection that the bubble is Ukraine-Russia. It's not. It's not like this.
Fine.
And not Israeli-Palestine. It's the border is.
Oh no! I put it in quotation marks because there are people who, I'm sure there are people who in Palestine who actually understand all of the horrors of Hamas, and I'm sure there are also people in Israel who are like hiding and
there are people in Israel who are against the current narrative.
Right. So now the one problem we haven't discussed this. So maybe this information bubble problem can be avoided to start with, right? How it was created. So maybe in the beginning, you should just create a system where there would be no information bubble. For example, education. If everybody would, get education, read books, have discussions, not just shouting, but, logical, like we are having here, right? Then maybe this information bubbles would never be formed, not between Democrats and Republicans, nor between Israel and Palestine. But given that they are formed, I'm saying, given that they're formed, what is it that you should do? And how do you resolve conflicts? How do you?
So actually, everything is coming to education, and then
learning. Everything comes to learning.
And also it's it's psychology level rather than so we are discussing things that I don't know. It's not
social
about solving problems on social or political level. Actually, the problems are psychological.
Well, the problems on the higher levels are created from problems on the lower level. If you have cancer with your cells, you'll have health issues, right? So every lower level problem will appear in the higher level problem. So if people are not educated, they will produce societies that are not capable to learn and adjust. And so, of course, the easiest way to treat it is to treat it below, to make sure that everybody is educated, everybody is learning, everybody is questioning, and critical thinking, all those things we discussed before. But if you already have cancer, right? If you're already sick, what is it that you do? How do you try to treat the problem? And I think the problem that I'm trying to ask you is that the lack of connections between higher level societies, communities, lack of ability to establishing connections. There's like zero communication, and you can like read and think what the Palestinian people write and read and what the education through kind of education they went through, and you understand reason behind what they do. It's not that they are chaotic, right? They acquired certain education. They have a certain understanding of how the world around them operates. and according to them, they're doing exactly what they were taught, right? And so you should not be surprised by that.
I object this way of formulating it, that there are Palestinian people who are doing that. It's not Palestinian people.
Oh, you mean, of course. No. I understand, right? I understand what you're saying. So in any dictatorship regime, authoritarian regime, when there is no democracy, there is no freedom, of course, it is not the people who make the decision. Even in democratic countries, it's not all the people who make decisions. There is always, there's a number of people who control the situations, but their number is usually larger in democratic countries. So there is more of fluidity, more.
Yeah, but in this case, we've got a ram that's calling the shots too. So there
are problems in other regimes.
Huge.
Yeah. So I'm not saying and nothing is perfect, but I think the immediate problem that I see right now, it's really, I mean, I've been here in US for 30 years. I mean, I've never seen the country so divided.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know, and I'm blaming Facebook and Twitter for that. It's literally algorithm of giving you the news. Okay. Yeah. And now, even if the news stations decide, okay, I'm going to speak truth from now on, any news station, they cannot just afford to do that, because if they start speaking truth, they will lose all of their listeners.
Yeah.
Because they will never gain the listeners from the other bubble, and they will only lose listeners from your bubble. And so, in this way of delivering the news is just not productive for them. So bubbles keep moving apart. And then the problem is just to change your mindset, is that you should really try to break the bubbles. It's hard, but that's the only way for this going forward.
But you're not really incentivized to break the your bubble or
but that's
anything
the
like
issue.
that.
That's the whole issue.
Yeah.
Any sudden, like, you are a Republican, moving a little bit to the left,
yes,
is not optimal for you.
Yeah, I was going to say that won't happen.
Right, you should be moving further right, and everybody will move with you. And the same for Democrats. And the same for Democrats. They're just it's ridiculous what's happening. And because of that, if you would be changing your linear democratic view by counting to the logarithmic, then you would necessarily have to think about both sides of the story. And that's kind of it doesn't matter. Both sides can be wrong or right, and we don't know who is wrong, who is right. But at least having this multidimensional perspective, I think, is a lot more useful.
Yeah. There was a great quote. I think it was I don't know if it was Franklin or Jefferson, but one turned to the other and they said, "Well, we created a republic." And it's now up to them, to support that republic, and it'll only stay a republic if they can do that. In other words, they formed this, they called it the perfect union, but it only stays a perfect union if people can continue to support that union and what it stands for, et cetera, et cetera. Otherwise, the bubble bursts, as you would say.
Right. Yeah, but it was a natural tendency, even in US, to split up into two parts, right?
Yeah.
South and North. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's really, you have to do something extraordinary in order to join.
It broke up because of slavery. So the North.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Maybe one more question about that. Is there an explanation from the point of view of the theory for this kind of dynamics?
Well, we just explained, right? So information bubble is the natural dynamics.
I mean, for forming, maybe I missed why it is. So you're saying that.
Okay. Right. So before, there were no internet, no telephone, right? So people were isolated because of where they lived. And so people living in one land would establish one point of view, in the other land, other point of view, based on whatever local objective they had, produce more wealth or whatever. And those objectives grow further and further apart. And that's why you created countries that would, constantly in nearby countries always be in the war with each other. France, Britain, right? Now South and North in US. Okay, now this problem was resolved with the invention of internet. There is no notion of locality. Everybody is connected. There's cities. Everybody is traveling around. And so I would think this is solved forever. No, because of this information algorithm, algorithms of the social media, we are divided into groups, into the information bubbles. So we will live, and that's why right now Republicans and Democrats, they don't need to live in a separate states. We can be neighbors. I'm a Democrat, I'm a neighbor as a Republican. Then I switch to being, and so that's the problem. The problem is, I think, social media that now created artificial bubbles. Before it was the boundaries, before it was the large distances, language barrier. People in the South spoke very different English from people on the North. They still speak very different English.
But that reminds some kind of clustering, doesn't it?
Yep. Right, exactly. But then you wanna so for the efficient learning, you wanna remove these barriers, right? And then internet was supposed to do that. And then those bubbles reappeared from optimizing the profit of Facebook and Twitter.
I mean, when we are talking about forming of agents, clustering is it's
that's an agent. Yeah. So Democrats is an agent. Republican is an agent. Yes, exactly. It's agency. It's formation of the agency, right? But if the agents don't communicate, those are bad agents. So having two types of views, like multidimensional views, is good. But having views where you have no communication with each other is bad. It's like you created two organisms that do not collaborate. They just fight with each other. It's not good for anyone. So creating is agents which can communicate is what you need. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so Meryl, I think I can send you some a doc and some links to the records of the meetings where we discussed Big Bang.
Oh, great. That'd be fantastic.
So I can contact you on Facebook, I think, and then I send it there to you.
We'll probably have another meeting about cosmology at some point.
At some point, yes, but as I understand, Meryl wants to know it now, and I can.
Okay, fine. You should send it to him. Perfect.
Yeah.
So
can you send it via my email?
I can send you on Facebook because I saw you there, so I have your contacts.
Okay, I haven't been on Facebook for a bazillion years, but anyway.
But you wrote there a couple of days ago.
Yeah, you wrote.
It was not you. Okay. Then can you write now your email in chat? So that
it's Meryl Butler at Yahoo.
No, please. Can you please type it?
Yeah, sure.
So and
in the chat, let me find that real quick. Where is that?
Okay, Katya, should I stop the recording or?
Yes, I think we can finalize.
Thanks.
I don't see a chat.